Hey, Ms. Jarvis, you have just distributed a packet of material which Ms. Gonso provided to you. Have you had a chance to review that material?
I have not. I'm looking through it right now.
I haven't counted the pages, but
Quite a few.
Maybe a quarter of an inch thick. Well, you can take a quick look through it, but there's not going to be time to read everything.
I'm prepared to proceed, Your Honor.
Are the board members ready to proceed? Not ready? Okay, so Ms. Jarvis, are you ready to introduce this matter to the board?
I am.
So,
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Christina Jarvis, Deputy Attorney General. I am appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7. My role here is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest by ensuring that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. Petitioner originally became licensed in December 1996. In 2001, she pled no contest to a felony for sexually abusing her minor child. The events actually occurred prior to petitioner becoming licensed in approximately 1993 and 1994. Petitioner and her husband, the child's stepfather, both took part in the abuse, and petitioner admits to being a heavy drug user of methamphetamine and cocaine at the time. The child was approximately 9 years old. After her conviction, but prior to sentencing, petitioner tested positive for methamphetamine. She had rented a vehicle at the time for her boyfriend to use, and when she went to jail for the positive methamphetamine test, he abandoned the vehicle. Petitioner ultimately also pled no contest to felony vehicle theft. On March 26, 2004, this board brought an accusation against the petitioner. The matter proceeded to a hearing, and the board adopted the proposed decision of the administrative law judge effective December 17, 2004, placing petitioner on probation for 3 years with certain specified terms and conditions of probation. On December 14, 2007, the board filed a petition to revoke probation with 8 causes. Basically, in approximately April to June of 2006, petitioner completely stopped complying with the probation program. However, even prior to that time, petitioner was only partially in compliance with the probation program. She had failed to complete biological fluid testing, she had failed to do her psychological evaluation, and she had failed to complete remedial coursework within 1 year of being placed on probation. Petitioner failed to respond to the petition to revoke probation, and a default was taken. After the default, petitioner petitioned for reconsideration, and the board delayed its decision to consider the petition. But effective April 26, 2008, petitioner's license was revoked. On August 2, 2012, petitioner filed her first petition for reinstatement. After hearing, the board determined that petitioner had not provided sufficient evidence of rehabilitation. First, her explanations of why she had failed to comply with probation were not credible. And second, the character reference letter she provided had no indication that the authors had knowledge of petitioner's convictions. The decision denying the petition was effective February 20th, 2013. However, the petitioner again requested reconsideration. And effective March 2nd, 2013, the petition for reconsideration was denied. That rather lengthy procedural history brings us to the process today. Petitioner filed this petition on or about March 1st, 2017. In the petition, she explains that she moved in November of 2007 and was irresponsible in complying with her probation terms and failing to notify the board of her new address and her new telephone number. She makes no attempt to explain the underlying conduct. She provided 2 letters, one confirming that her criminal probation terminated on May 15th, 2007, and a character reference letter from someone who states that she has worked with petitioner when she was a nurse and currently still works with her in an animal rescue organization, and asks that the board grant petitioner her license. Petitioner states that it was her move in 2007 that caused her to fail to comply with probation. However, she had already failed to comply with the biological fluid testing, as I previously stated, and those tests were in 2004 and 2005. It's convenient to blame the move in 2007, but in fact, the move is just one factor, and we do not know why petitioner failed to comply prior to her move. The board also needs to consider the severity of the underlying acts and convictions. Finally, although this petitioner is eligible for reinstatement, there is an outstanding cost recovery balance of $4,536.50. As was previously discussed in a petition hearing today, with a default, there generally is not cost recovery. However, in this case, this petitioner was on probation with cost recovery ordered prior to the default. There is no cost recovery for petitions to revoke probation, and therefore this amount, the $4,500, is solely for the original underlying action. Further, it has been more than 4 years since the petitioner's license expired, I apologize. So if she is granted reinstatement, the order must include term 24 to take and pass the licensure examination. At this time, I would like to identify and submit into evidence the exhibits previously provided to the board, the judge, and the petitioner. Exhibit 1 is the notice of hearing, petition for reinstatement, petition documents that I've identified, and all of the underlying decisions and orders.
The petition is marked as Exhibit 1 and admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, since the burden is on petitioner, it is now her opportunity to address the board.
Ms. Sanso, please stand so I can swear you in. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please be seated and spell your first and last name. State and spell your first and last name for the court reporter.
Sanso, P-A-I-G-E, Sanso, S-A-N-S-O.
Okay. Ms. Sanso, did you hear what I had to say to the larger group this morning about focusing on rehabilitation?
Yes.
Okay. And if you have, do you have any procedural questions?
No.
Okay. The one thing I'm going to ask of you, since you've given us a fairly substantial packet of documents with different types of documents in the packet, I'm going to ask that in your testimony that you reference those documents in the order in which they are in the packet and tell us what they are, and I will mark them accordingly.
Would you like me to start there?
You don't necessarily need to start there.
Okay.
want you to be able to say whatever you came here to say and make sure that you've said everything you feel you need. But one of the things that we need you to say is to have, is to make reference to documents that we've only seen for the first time.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
So this is your turn.
Dear members of the board, I'm here today to ask and pray for your forgiveness for violating the terms of my nursing probation. I hope that you will give me the opportunity to have my nursing license reinstated. Excuse me. My petition was denied on February 20th, 2013 because I did not prove that I was rehabilitated since my nursing license was revoked on April 26, 2008. At the time of the revocation, I was dealing with the difficulty of my stepfather being unable to take care of his house, which was for sale, his dogs, and his medical needs. I was asked by his attorney, Matt Bishop, and his family if I would move in to take care of him, which I did with my teenage son. Because of Dan's alcoholism, he was hospitalized numerous times for pancreatitis. The doctor gave him 6 months to live if he didn't quit drinking. I got him into an inpatient alcohol program, which I participated in all family events and attended AA to support him. In the process of taking care of him, dealing with my son who was getting into trouble and not going to school and working full-time, I neglected to take care of my responsibilities to the board, which I am very sorry for, and I am totally accountable for my for my failures to the board, my family, patients, and coworkers. Since the revocation of my license, my stepfather passed away in October 2008 of pancreatic cancer that had metastasized throughout his body. I kept my word to him and cared for him until he took his last breath. My son is clean and sober and an amazing father of my 4-year-old granddaughter, which I had the great pleasure of watching her grow up because we lived together. It is great having the love and support of the family unit. I was blessed to be by the side of my absolutely strong, beautiful, and amazing daughters. Daughter died when she got married last October. Can I say that I'm rehabilitated? I say yes. I have continued to live a life clean and sober. I have continued to work full time. I volunteer with an animal rescue group. I go to the gym 3 times a week. I enjoy the outdoors and spending time with my family and close friends, and I have remained a law-abiding citizen. I want to thank you for the opportunity to hear me. I hope you find it in your hearts to give me a second chance to prove to you I am capable of following any probation terms you may place and allow me the opportunity to return to my love of nursing and taking care of people. Sincerely, Paige Sanso.
That was your reading of the letter, the first document on the
Yes.
packet. And so I've marked that as Exhibit 2.
Okay.
Admitted into evidence as Exhibit 2.
When I wrote the letter, there was a lot of stuff that I realized that I forgot. And in this packet is a copy of my dismissal of my felony case for joyriding. I was not charged with grand theft. I was charged with joyriding.
What I'm going to ask you to do is not simply say in the pack, and I'm going to ask you to go in the order that the documents are presented, so because they're not page numbered,
Right.
we can't flip through and find what you're referencing. So you're going to have
Okay.
to go through in the order of the packet.
Okay, so then the next item in the packet is the letter from my daughter. And then the next one is actually a duplicate because it was sent in with my petition, which is the termination of my, or the completion of my probation, my criminal probation.
The next well, the letter from your daughter is a page.
2-page.
Okay, so that's marked as Exhibit 3. It's a letter dated May 10, 2017.
And if you want to throw out this one.
One person can
Oh,
speak
I'm
at a
sorry.
time, okay?
I'm sorry.
So the letter dated May 10, 2017 is marked as Exhibit 3. Heather Rossi Curro is your daughter?
Curry.
Curry is your daughter?
Yes.
And that's admitted into evidence. The next document is from County of Napa Probation Department regarding your formal probation being terminated on May 2007. I've marked that as Exhibit 4.
And like I said, it's actually a duplicate because it's in my petition, which,
So it's being marked as Exhibit 4
Okay.
here
I'm sorry.
and admitted into evidence, as is Exhibit 3. Next, do you have anything to say about that?
About the completion of my criminal probation.
Correct.
What I would like to say in regards to the board saying that I failed to submit to random drug testing, I think they said in 2004 and 2005. I was actually on criminal probation until this ended, and random drug testing was part of my terms. And I was tested all the way up until the completion of my term. Until my term was completed. And I never had any dirty test. Otherwise, that would have been a violation, which would have sent me to prison.
Next document is in the same, well, is
The next,
actually a petition to withdraw your plea and set aside verdict in case number CR 108935. That's a case number in Napa Superior Court. There's the order of dismissal in the same case number, handwritten in, and a transmittal matter of the same case number, and the Napa County's prosecution review and recommendation, and so those documents I have marked as Exhibit 5 collectively. Have anything to say about your petition to withdraw or set aside your plea, Napa Superior Court case number CR 108935?
except that it was dismissed, so.
Okay, well, the documents speak to that. So Exhibit 5 is admitted. Exhibit 6 is in Napa Superior Court case number CR 103913, petition to withdraw plea or set aside verdict. Okay, and the following page is a notice of a hearing regarding expungement. I've marked those two pages as Exhibit 6. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, when I went to court on the 20th, it was continued until the 24th of this month because the judge ordered that the probation department and the DA follow up with the victim, because in all these years, nobody has ever followed up.
So it's continued until,
The 24th of this month at 8:30 a.m. And I was also charged with child endangerment, not child molestation, as the paper states. And when I was looking at my old records, I realized you guys had me that I was convicted on August, I think, 23rd, 2001, when I was actually convicted on October 1st, 2001, for the child endangerment.
it says in this paper you were convicted on October 3rd, 2001?
3rd, yeah.
Is that correct or
Yes.
incorrect?
The date on the paper is the correct date.
Okay, is there anything more you want to say about this pending petition?
No.
The next document is, so I've marked that as Exhibit 6. It's admitted into evidence. The next document is Exhibit 7, which is an announcement regarding Danny Michael Wisnowski, memorial service announcement. I've marked that as Exhibit 7. Is there anything you wish to say about Exhibit 7?
No, I was just putting that in because that was. I just put that in, so you would know that I actually was taking care of him and that he died. And the letter.
Can you say who he is?
My stepfather.
I've marked that as Exhibit 7, and it is admitted into evidence. The next is Exhibit 8, a letter from Max Bovary to you, dear Paige, dated October 27, 2008. That's Exhibit 8. Is there anything you wish to say about that?
No, that was just a letter from hospice.
Your Honor, I have a question.
Yes.
Ma'am, with this letter from hospice, they were offering services available, or letting you know of services available to you and your family. Did you take advantage of any?
No, I did not.
You have no other questions related to that document?
Anything else you wish to say about Exhibit 8?
No.
The next is a series of employment performance reviews. Are those all from the same employer?
Yes.
I will mark that collectively as Exhibit 9. Is there anything you wish to say about your employment performance reviews?
No.
Next document is from Whiskers and Tails, to whom it may concern, dated February 28, 2017. I've marked this as Exhibit 10. Is there anything you wish to say about Exhibit 10?
No.
The next is a letter from Rosemary Conley at Windsor Vallejo Care Center, dated February 12, 2013, to whom it may concern. Mark this as Exhibit 11. Is there anything you wish to say about Exhibit 11?
This letter was written after my last hearing, when they did not accept any of my character reference letters because they said the writers were not aware. And the letter behind this one is actually the original one that Rosemary had written.
Okay, and so those two, and was the second letter enclosed with the February 27, 2012 letter enclosed with the February 12, 2013 letter?
Yes.
Two are marked collectively as exhibit. Well, I don't see an enclosure, so I will, for clarity, mark them separately. The letter of February 12, 2013 is admitted as Exhibit 11, and the letter of February 27, 2012 from Rosemary Conley is marked as Exhibit 12. And
I'm sorry, Your Honor, were 9 and 10, 9, 10, and 11 also admitted?
9, 10, and 11 were also admitted. The next is a letter dated March 1, 2012 from Rebecca Wisnowski, Board of Licensed Vocational Nursing. Have anything to say about this?
That was a letter my mom wrote the last time I had court, and I left it in because it explains what was going on with my stepfather.
So Exhibit 13 is marked and admitted. The next letter is dated April 13, 2017 from Rebecca Wisnowski. I'll mark that as Exhibit 14. Have anything to say about Exhibit 14?
She wrote that letter for me for
Who is
my
she? Your mother?
my mom. I'm sorry, for my expungement case that I had on April 20th, 2017.
Is that the expungement case still pending?
Yes.
The next letter is dated May 10, 2017 from Freddie Blair, to whom it may concern. I'll mark this as Exhibit 15. Is there anything you wish to say about Exhibit 15?
No, that was just a reference letter from a friend and coworker.
(14) and 15 are admitted. The next document is next series of documents. Are a series of certificates of completion. And I'm marking them collectively, certificates of completion, as Exhibit 16. Can you tell us what they are? Do you want us to think of them individually? Have anything you wish to say about any one of them in
Well,
particular?
the first one, even though it was late, I had done 30 hours of CEUs for child abuse, which was related to my case. And I had also done 30 hours of substance abuse, which was related to my case. The next ones were just classes I took on my own or classes that were offered at work. I did not claim them under my license because it was revoked at the time, so I just took the classes, but they were CEU courses.
Certificates of completion, collectively marked as Exhibit 16, are admitted into evidence. Okay, as I said, this is your time to say what you have to say. We've gone through the documents you presented. You read the first document, which is Exhibit 2. Is there anything else you wish to say?
I have to say I get confused on proving my rehabilitation because it says from when my license was revoked. My license was revoked in 2008, which is when I was going through all the stress with my stepfather and my son. And when I think of it from that point, there's like no rehab from that. I lost my stepfather, who was basically the only dad I ever had. Because the dad that I do have actually abused me as a child. And my son, who was an unruly, got in trouble all the time, teenage boy, is now grown. He just turned 27, and like I said, he's a father now. And I have an amazing granddaughter because of him. So there's like not a rehab from that. To me, the only way I could rehab myself is if the board granted me the ability to reinstate my nursing license with probation terms, so I could prove to you that I can follow them. And of course, where I always take it is to the original charges. And honestly, can I say I'm rehabbed from that? That'll never go away. I have to live every single day and have lived every single day with the fact that I failed my daughter in the worst way possible. And as you read my daughter's letter, you'll know that I have an absolutely amazing relationship with her, and I'm so fortunate. And as I said, I'm clean and sober and have been since September 23rd, 2001. I did 5 years of rehab, which is pre my license being revoked. And it was not court ordered. And then I continued doing it on my own. In regards to my nursing license, I have never had a disciplinary action taken against me at any of my employment. The nursing license is actually what saved me from being a drug addict. When I got my license, or my acceptance into nursing school in 1995, I had to make a decision of what I was going to do. And I moved back home with my mom and my daughter. And I quit, like I said, I quit using drugs the day that I got that letter. Because I said either I make something of my life or I'm going to die an addict. And I never worked a single day using drugs. The dirty test that I gave in September was when I was actually in a really bad relationship with a guy who had kidnapped me and took the car that I had rented. And I used to get locked in a room. I used to get beat. And because of his drug use and him thinking everybody was after him, he would have me do drugs to prove that I wasn't going to turn him in. I was stabbed. I had a gun pulled on me. And when he kidnapped me and I missed my OR, which is the special allegation on the case that was expunged, that's what saved my life. And I called my mom when I got back. And I had her take me to probation, and probation took me into custody. And I never got out until I was released after being sentenced and serving my year. The year that I spent in jail, I don't know, because I've never been in trouble before. But I felt like the biggest idiot being in jail, serving time, and getting arrested while you're in jail. When I was released, which was in June of 2002 for my first case, then I had to go back to court and was sentenced on November 6, 2002, which I was convicted of felony joyriding. And I had to go back and serve 30 days, which I did, and was also given 3 years probation for that. And at that time, I was not working as a nurse because I couldn't work, because I couldn't be left alone, because, like I said, the guy that I was dating totally believed I was going to turn him into the police for the illegal things that he was doing. So I'd just like to be given the opportunity to show you that I am not that person, that I am changed. Bottom line is, I've made amends to the ones that it matters most to, and that's my daughter and my son. I'd like to be able to have the opportunity to do the one thing I never screwed up, and that's be a nurse. Thank you for listening.
Jarvis, do you have questions?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Sanso, you were placed on probation in December of 2004, probation through this board, not criminal probation. But you did not comply with your probation almost immediately, right? I mean, you failed to do your biological fluid testing through the board, not through your criminal probation. Why? If you were already doing all this work through your criminal probation, why not comply with your probation through this board?
I do not ever remember getting a call on those dates that you said. That's why I questioned that, because I honestly do not remember getting a call.
You also submitted this document at Exhibit 16, the certificate of completion for the 2 classes of 30 hours each. And you said just now when you submitted it that it was late.
Yes.
And you completed these courses in 2012, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you were ordered to complete them by the end of December of 2005, right?
Yes.
So why didn't you?
You know, I don't have an answer for that. I didn't have a reason why I didn't do it. I remember the person that I met with, she said that she had to approve the classes that I took, and I faxed them to her. And it was same with the psych eval. I had to submit to her, names of people, and she would tell me who I could have do the psych eval. And the bottom line is it was my fault for not following up on my calls to her or my faxes to her with that information.
Now, in 2012, when you completed these 2 30-hour courses, you put your LVN license that had been revoked 8 years previously on your certificate.
You have to in order to fill out the information for the CEUs.
Is there any way of indicating to the Homestead schools or anywhere on this form that your license has been revoked?
No, there isn't.
Now, in 2007 is when you started commuting up to Napa to take care of your stepfather, correct?
Yes.
And that's also when you got off probation, your criminal probation.
Yes.
And if you didn't start commuting until 2007, then why did you stop submitting your quarterly reports in 2006?
I did not work the first quarter in 2007. And I thought I had turned in the second one for 2007.
The records show that you failed to turn in your quarterly reports in the April through June quarter of 2006, July through September of 2006. Basically, from June 2006, you just stopped filing your quarterly reports.
The 2006 ones, I was working at Springs Road, and the first director of nurses, he quit and just left, and then the replacement that they had, she actually passed away on the job.
And that explains why you failed to comply with your work performance evaluations, but you know that you're still required to submit quarterly reports even without work performance evaluations, correct?
Honestly, I was not aware of that. I thought they went together.
Did you ever explain to the board, I can't submit my work performance evaluations because I haven't had one?
I don't remember.
Now, in your petition on page 4, you stated for the employer Pine Ridge Care Center from November 2014 to April 2015, your reason for leaving was that you were terminated because of a felony.
Yes.
Did you receive another felony in 2015?
No.
This was because of your 2001 felony?
Yes.
Had you failed to disclose that felony to Pine Ridge when you were hired?
No.
So why would they suddenly terminate you after 6 months of work based on a felony that happened 14 years before?
That I'm not quite sure. They stated that they came in, they fired the administrator, and that was who I interviewed with. And then I was working a Saturday, and the corporate manager, or not corporate, sorry, regional manager came in, and he said that they were letting me go because of the felony on my background check.
Did you ask why it took 6 months for them to figure that out?
I did, and he didn't give me an answer.
Thank you.
I
I have
als-
no,
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say, I also didn't even get my final paycheck when they let me go until a later time.
I have no other questions.
Okay, at this point, the members of the board will have an opportunity to ask you questions. And Ms. Norton?
Your Honor, I'd like to go last, please.
Okay. Mr. Deerking?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Sanso, what's your sobriety date?
September 23rd, 2001.
Okay, and when was the underlying conduct for, what was it, joyriding, the felony charge?
Yes.
When did that happen?
The end of August.
What year?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it was the end of August or first part of September.
What year?
Oh, 2001.
Okay, I saw a reference here to November 2002.
That's when I was charged. Or convicted, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the process took over a year?
Well, I was in jail the whole time. I would have to pull out my records.
And when did you actually last work as a vocational nurse?
I think it was April 24th, 25th of 2008.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Mr. Vertito?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Sanso, the nursing profession, particular vocational nursing nowadays, deals with a lot of doctor's orders. You're having anywhere from, say, 15 patients to 30, depending on the shift. You're getting doctor's orders constantly coming in, and you have to send reports out based on those orders. Is that correct? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay, so you are constantly multitasking, and you have to, as part of your responsibilities, is pay attention to the details and comply with all components of a doctor's order. Would you agree with that based on your past history?
Yes.
So, question I have to ask in relation to multitasking and attention to details. You were given a letter by this board in preparation for your meeting dated February 17th, 2017. It's listed as page C5 in your packet. In the dotted paragraphs underneath, it says, submit supporting documentation which will assist you in establishing rehabilitation. Suggested materials include, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the last one says, be sure all letters signed and dated. Do you see that?
That's C5?
Correct.
Actually, this has my address crossed out. My address was incorrect. They had my address as 1314 Devlin, which is correct, but then it went to Anaheim, California, not Vallejo, California. And I let Rebecca Anderson know that.
Okay, but did you receive this document eventually?
I received it the day before it was due.
Before what is due?
The petition for the application for,
So you received it when?
I want to say I received it the 27th or the 28th, and it was due by the March 1st, if I'm not,
So you received it in February?
yeah, the last day that it was due the next day, and I faxed it to her because I couldn't even mail it to get it to her within the cutoff date.
Okay.
And like I said, I called her and let her know that I faxed it, and then I also mailed it to her.
Okay, I understand that. The reason I'm asking, in relation to a duty as an LVN in a healthcare facility with inpatient care, as I stated earlier, you're getting constant orders from the doctor, you're constantly calling the doctor, the family, discussing or setting up test, examination, lab. One of the things that is inherent in a nurse is attention to details. Because if we miss something, it can lead to something much larger, more complications, possibly a life and death situation for a patient on a failed assessment or failed to pay attention. The reason why I'm coming back to this, I'm looking at your status at your requesting as an LVN, is that in this paragraph asks you to submit supporting documents. And today we received a rather huge packet. Most of the information is dated 2 years or more, 2 years ago or later. Nothing, a few documents that are recent, I can understand being submitted today. But if you have documentation that's dated more than 2 years ago, did you contact the board to see if that could be submitted in the initial packet so that the board can review and digest and assess your standing based on these additional documentation?
Well, I didn't have the time because it was due by the next day. So I didn't have enough time to get everything together to send it in with the petition.
Did you make a contact did you contact anybody at the board and ask if you could send it in later after March 1st as an addendum so it could get into the board's hands for proper review?
No, I did not. I just called and asked or told her about the incorrect address.
Based on this exercise, so to speak, in critical thinking, do you think you possess the skills necessary to make decisions related to patient care, related to execution of a physician's order regarding treatment, lab tests, et cetera, and communications? Do you think you have the skills necessary to be a safe, competent practitioner of vocational nursing?
Yes, I do.
Based on this exercise on a review?
Like I said, it was not like I did it intentionally. I did not want to have to bring this much. I actually was hoping that I was just going to be bringing my reference letters. So I would have not done it that way if I could have sent it all in with the petition.
I understand that, but based on a review of the exercise in critical thinking, consider calling the board and asking if this could be sent in as an addendum?
I did not.
Because nursing is a multitask, multiple area of field patient care, because you got to take a look at the patient, coordinate with the family, coordinate with the doctor, coordinate with other nurses, coordinate with other services. Gets quite complex, gets quite busy. Do you think you possess the skills necessary at this time to be a safe professional practitioner? Since I believe you stated your last date that you worked as a nurse was in April of 2008, approximately 9 years ago.
I do believe I still have the ability to do that. Up until 2007, I worked as a director of admissions at the nursing home that I worked at as a nurse. And I actually just went back to work there a couple weeks ago. So on a much lesser level, but we get orders in our office for physician orders that we need to take to the nurses, and it's done in a timely manner. We give, the families information. So I know what they're doing, what the nurses are doing on the floor. I know how busy that they are. And some of our nurses have, 30 patients that they're taking care of.
So to be clear, you're equating that your job as a admissions person is equal to functioning as a nurse on the floor, a vocational nurse providing patient care on the floor?
No. What I'm saying is I see what the nurses on the floor are doing and how busy that they are with the patient loads that they have, the doctor's orders that are coming in, the x-rays that they have to get, the labs that they have to get, the charting that they're doing. I see all of that being done from the position that I work in.
So you're talking about administrative, but what about treatments and procedures and the actual bedside care that also has to be provided by the vocational nurse on the floor? Do you think you possess those skills necessary to be a safe practitioner?
I do believe I do.
Based on, position is based on what?
That I had the ability to do it before. I worked in long-term. I had 30 patients. And I never had any issues taking care of all the stuff that was going on. And back when I did that, we actually didn't have admission nurses. We didn't have treatment nurses. Now the facilities have admission nurses that do the admissions for them. They have treatment nurses that do the treatments for them.
Right? Never mind. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Is James Perez?
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I know it's gone on quite a while, and I do have several questions for you, so bear with me. And some of the questions that I'm going to ask you, we're going to have to talk about difficult subjects. That might be hard to talk about, but we must, because this board is tasked with protecting the public and needy and vulnerable members of the public. So I wasn't here the times that you came before the board before, and so this is the first time I've seen your case. One thing that you asked about earlier was you said you were a little confused about what you needed to show rehabilitation from. And you were saying that your license was revoked because you failed probation. But I just want to correct you a little bit, and Ms. Jarvis, please stop me if I'm saying anything legally incorrect. The original charge was for the child abuse, the unlawful taking of a vehicle, the drug abuse. Your license was revoked, but the revocation was stayed, so it was put on hold, and you were allowed to have probation. When you failed probation, your license was not revoked again. That original revocation was then enforced. So the reason your license was revoked was the underlying conduct. So you need to provide evidence of rehabilitation from all of it. The child abuse, the drug abuse, the convictions, and also the failure to comply with the probation. So I just wanted to, since you said you were confused about that, I just wanted to discuss. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to read I've been reading in other cases from the record of a situation that I've been presented with, and then I'm going to ask you about the circumstances surrounding it. So on page F20, it says that you were convicted of penal code willfully harming or injuring a child, correct? And it says from 1993 to 1994, respondent and Eric Ray Crickman, I believe that was your husband, is that correct?
Yes.
Committed the crime of lewd acts upon a child under the age of 14, which I believe was your daughter, is that correct?
Yes.
By having the victim lick the penis of Eric Ray Crickman with the intent of arousing, appealing to, and gratifying the lust, passions, and sexual desires of themselves and the victim. On page F3, it says that you were living in Oroville and your daughter was in the 2nd and 3rd grades. Mr. Crickman sexually molested child number 1 over a period of approximately 1.5 years. Respondent, that's you, was aware of the abuse and actively participated in it. This participation included waking child number 1 up and bringing her into another room to watch pornography or to watch respondent and Crickman engage in sexual relations and encouraging daughter, child number 1, to touch Crickman in a sexual manner. Also, respondent was aware Crickman would go into child number 1's bedroom at night to molest her. Respondent told, a few years later, child number 1 confronted respondent about being molested by Crickman. Respondent told child number 1, I'm sorry, I'm reading too fast. It's the end of the report. A few years after these events, child number 1 confronted respondent about being molested by Crickman. Respondent told child number 1 to keep quiet so the family would not be broken up. And then it says that respondent was arrested and charged with 16 felony counts of Penal Code Section 288, lewd act upon a child. What I think I hear you telling me is that the original lewd act on a child were not convictions, that instead you were convicted of
All allegations.
the willfully harming or injuring a child. So we can read this, we can read about the situation, and it's obviously very disturbing. But what I need you to tell me is, what were the circumstances at that time that either caused or allowed or were a factor in you doing that, and what has changed now?
Back then I was a drug addict.
Okay.
Actually a very bad drug addict.
And
Eric was a very controlling person.
I believe your drug of choice was methamphetamine?
Methamphetamine.
And yeah, we know that drug does horrible things. We know, we've seen it. And your husband was controlling. Now, your own probation officer said this, and I'm wondering if you disagree with it. Your own probation officer wrote on F4, the fact that respondent was a heavy drug user at the time of the offense is not a mitigating factor. The idea that respondent may have been under the control of the co-participant Eric Crickman at the time of the offense does not seem sufficient. Okay, does not seem sufficient to soften the heinous character of this crime. The fact that the respondent was present and observed the victim being molested cancels out any ability to understand how the respondent could have been controlled so extensively by her co-participant. Like anyone else, respondent made choices. She consistently and continually stayed with the sexual predator of its children, rather than exercising her prerogative to leave. But you feel otherwise. Is that what you're saying, that you felt you couldn't leave?
Couldn't leave. And then when I did, or actually I didn't leave, I made him leave.
Mm-hmm.
And because of his alcohol and drug use, he went out and got in a fight, came back all beat up, and then Matthew, which is his son, my son, but I mean, his father, then would blame me for his dad getting beat up. And we actually lived in separate rooms in the house. And my daughter did not live there. From the time I left Orville, which is when I was accepted into nursing school, I took Heather with me. And I left Matthew with his dad while I went to nursing school until I was almost completed with nursing school, and then I moved Matthew with me.
And I hear what you're saying, and I do not disbelieve you. I believe you that you had a controlling husband. I believe you that methamphetamine had a terrible impact on your life. Don't think that I'm not empathetic to that. But the question that I have to ask you is, with all those things being considered, do you take responsibility for any part of the child abuse?
I blame myself totally for it still to this day.
And have you ever received counseling or therapy about?
5 years of it with Bruce Killen, which is in my petition. I actually tried again to get a hold of him to get a report from the work that I did with him, because I actually learned a lot. And I totally.
And so what is different now, Ms. Sanso? What's different now that this would not occur again?
You see what's on the paper. Without cussing up,
Maybe we should take a 5-minute
We need
break.
to pause just for a moment.
Maybe some tissues would be helpful.
Your Honor, could we take a break to allow her to recompose herself?
not gonna help because since I talk about it.
So you let us know when you're ready to continue.
No.
I don't want to rush you.
What's different now is I am clean and sober. And I blame myself.
We're still on the record, yeah.
I blame myself, despite the fact I made horrible choices with quite a few of the men that I dated and married.
What's different now is you're clean and sober. That's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. What about personal relationships? Are you still involved with the same type?
Oh my Lord, no.
So you've made the change in that area.
Yes.
Okay.
I know that I don't need anybody else to take care of me. I don't need somebody else to tell me that I'm an okay person.
Great. That's great. And that's true. And that's very true, Ms. Anso. Your sobriety date was 9/23/01, and is that from everything? That was
Absolutely
meth?
everything.
Do you still drink alcohol?
I never drank. I mean, I did way back then, but no, I don't drink.
And on page A6, I see that you did attend meetings, either, I guess, NA or AA? NA. But that you stopped in 2014.
That's when my son and daughter-in-law and granddaughter moved in with me. And I have to say, the value of having the family unit back. I go to work, I come home, and I come home and we have dinner together, which is like what we used to do when, it was me and the kids. We talk about our days. I take the dog for a walk. I go to the gym 3 times a week. I have a normal life, and it's nice to have.
And so you don't feel the need to go to the meetings anymore?
No, but I know that if I needed to, I actually know exactly where to go.
Okay. And so obviously you don't go to meetings, so you don't have a sponsor now either?
No.
On page A7, we talked already about it a little bit. You were under the care of a therapist, Bruce Killen, and you do not see him anymore. When did you stop seeing him?
I started seeing him in 2001, so 2006, about the time that I moved to Vallejo.
Okay, so about the time you moved.
Yeah, I moved to Vallejo and then I moved back.
So it says, I was able to establish strong coping skills. That's one
Yes.
thing you said you learned. But could you describe a few of those for me, the type of coping skills that you learned?
Like I said, I learned, because being kind of my dad's whipping post growing up, I learned that that's not okay. And I learned that when you have issues, it's much better to talk about them and work them out, as opposed to the fighting, the arguing, the blaming, you know, all those controlling behaviors that I was used to. I also learned that the reason I was picking bad men was because I was looking for that father figure that I never really had. And that made a huge difference, because then I started valuing myself. And little things make me happy. You know, when I'm stressed out now, I just go for a walk. Like I said, I can take the dog for a walk. I can go hiking, and those things make everything better. Calling my kids, you know, we all call. My daughter, if she's having a bad day, she calls me, and I don't even say anything. She just vents, yells, screams, whatever is making her mad, and then she's done. And then when she's done, I say, is there anything I can do to help? And it's always, nope, thanks for listening. You know, and to have that support is important. I know that I have my kids to go to if I need something. And I eliminated every friend that I had from back then, and figured out that the 3 or 4 that I have, that's all I need. Because no matter what I need, whether it's just to talk or, you know, I'm having a bad day and I need some support, they're there.
So it sounds like you gained some real insight
I have.
during the therapy. And I would also like to say, I heard you speak about that you were also a victim of, whether it be your father or your ex-husband, or being kidnapped by your boyfriend, or not getting paid from your, and so I don't discount that. I want you to know that this board does not discount that. You know, our primary concern is protection of the public, but we do hear you, and we don't discount that, your own victimization. Okay. Then you've been working with the animal rescue, it looks like.
Oh, Moskowitz. I did when I had Kaiser. I no longer have Kaiser, and she actually retired.
So I'm looking for my page here.
Yeah,
And
that's, I didn't resubmit that this time because I hadn't, you know, seen her. I actually was seeing her because Bruce wasn't available, and I was having issues with feeling like a piece of crap for all these charges.
Right. So, oh, I'm sorry, here on page A12, it says Whiskers, Tails, and Ferals.
Yes.
That was the rescue that you were participating in.
Yeah, I still work with that one.
And it actually is a very glowing letter of recommendation. And Ms. Morris Adams says that you do great work there, and that it takes compassion, commitment, and selflessness to do this type of work. Do you think that is an adequate, do you think that describes you? Compassionate, committed, selfless?
Yes.
So
In fact, on lunch break today, I got a call from my coworker. She's like, you have the cat food. I said, don't worry, I'll stop by and feed him when I get off work. Or back, you know, because usually we cover each other when we're not at work, so nobody goes hungry.
And that's, you know, those are good adjectives. That's the kind of nurse that we want, right? We want a nurse that is compassionate, committed, selfless, not just during work time, but that's their character. And, you know, certainly Ms. Morris Adams can attest and says this is the kind of person you are. So what happened? Because in the 90s, I don't think these adjectives maybe could have described you as well. What happened to change you into this person that you are now? What triggered it, or what happened that you had such a dramatic change in your character?
I was actually that person prior to using drugs. And then my years of using drugs turned me into a horrible person. And when I quit using, I went back to who I was.
Came back out. So that was your original nature,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
My
Makes
dad used to
sense.
tell me I'd give the food, my last meal to the homeless person so they would have food. I started rescuing animals when I was 5 years old.
If you felt, I'm not saying you would, but if you felt tempted to use meth again, you're
God, no.
is there someone you would be able to reach out to? Would you be able to go back to meetings? Would you?
Oh, you definitely go back to meetings. Yeah.
And I just have one last question. I know that you've said you've been in a lot of controlling or maybe even abusive, manipulating relationships. You're back at work, you're an LVN, you got your license. There's a doctor or an administrator or the director of nursing, a man in authority over you, and you find that he's sexually inappropriate with the patients. Maybe they can't speak for themselves, they're needy and vulnerable, and you find out about it. What would you do?
I'd be reporting it.
And he tells you, don't you dare report it. I will take your job. I will make sure you never work in this town. I'll be the end of you.
It wouldn't matter. Believe me, I'm not that person that's not going to protect somebody ever again,
So now you would make the report no matter what.
no matter what.
Thank you.
Ms. Endozo?
Questions right now.
Bass de Martinez?
No questions.
Mr. Moreno? Mr. Maxey?
Thank you, Your Honor. I thank you for what you've been able to share today. Definitely lived a life of trials and tribulations, and I appreciate your candor. As an LVN, though, and as this board is about consumers, I'm not an LVN, but as an LVN that you are looking to be reinstated to be, you would have access to children. And our job is to protect the consumer. So what would you say to a consumer that would have a child that would be protected or to be protected by you and know that you have this history? What would you like to say to that potential consumer?
I mean, if I was to be taking care of a child,
That's correct.
I would definitely let them know what my past was. Because, like I said, had I not been the drug addict that I was, I would have never failed my daughter the way I did. And I would never want another child or a parent to go through what I have been through. And I would not want somebody to fear or feel like they would have to fear me. So I would want them to know and let them make a decision if they would want me, to take care of their child. I have to say, I have a 4-year-old granddaughter. And the fact that it's my son's daughter, not my daughter's. But there is nothing in this world that I would ever do to hurt her, nor would I ever allow anybody to hurt her. Like I said it to my daughter and my son all the time, I'm a better grandma than I was a mom because of the horrible choices I made back then. The fact now, because like I said, I'm clean, I'm sober, I live life on life's terms, and I love who I am now. That I'm able to be the grandma that I need to be and raise my granddaughter so she knows right from wrong. I have to say, I did with my daughter tell her about drugs and alcohol. She listened, and my son didn't. And I spent a lot of time with my son being in and out of jail, or actually started with juvenile hall in jail, until he was, well, Lily's going to be 4. So until 4 years ago did my son finally get it, despite what I told him what I went through because of drugs and alcohol.
And then what are some programs that you've been involved in to give back to ensure that you're learning about your mistakes and that you're making sure that others might learn not to make the same mistakes you did? Are there programs, community programs that you're involved in or have been involved with over the years?
Well, when I was originally released, I had restrictions on my criminal court terms, so I couldn't be like around parks and stuff like that. So I actually kind of put myself in a protective mode where I stayed away from, like areas where children were. Kind of back to the question that you just asked me. I didn't want to, get myself where somebody would think they would have to worry about me. So I did Women's Alive, which was a program in Napa. I also did Alternatives for Better Living, and I took 2 parenting classes, and none of that was court ordered. I did all those on my own. And in the recent time, I haven't done anything, because I haven't had any issues. But like I said, I learned a lot from the classes that I did. I learned a lot from the therapy that I did. Obviously, you learn a lot, going to meetings, because there's stories out there as horrible as mine is. I think mine can't be any worse, and you hear stories that are actually worse than your own story. And people get through it.
Thank you. No more further questions.
Mr. DeBronstein?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Turner?
Yes. How old is your daughter now?
31.
So looking at Exhibit 3, which is her letter, is there any reason why you didn't have her to sign her name?
It was because she emailed it to me last night because of her work schedule.
And she couldn't e-sign it or anything else like that?
I would have to ask her.
And this board has given you probation before? An
Yes.
opportunity to correct, come back, a second chance? What's different about you being here today? Why should this board give you another chance?
I believe I've learned my lesson with just everything that has gone on. I finally have come to a place in my life where I'm taking care of things like I'm supposed to. I work full-time, which I've done all along. I have to say, being back as the admissions director at the nursing home that I worked at previously has been so awesome to be just in that environment. I get up 2 hours before I have to go to work, have my coffee, hang out with my son before he leaves for work. I do everything like I'm supposed to, like a normal person does. I have to say, being arrested and the humiliation that I caused my family and the pain that I caused my daughter and my son really took a toll on me. And like I said, it'll never go away, no matter how much therapy I have, no matter how much counseling I have. But I know I'm not that person anymore. And to have the expungements, that's why I continue to fight for them. That's why I continue to come to the board and try to get my license back. I want to show everybody I'm not that person. And I am capable of proving to, you meaning the board. And the same with my expungement. Like I said, when they denied it with the paper portion of it. They denied it. So that when they deny it, then it goes to court, where you actually go in front of the judge. And they had denied it before when I have applied, because I had to wait the time frame. But none of these other judges have ever asked, what about the victim? And then when I got done with court, I called my daughter and I told her, I said, for the first time, somebody actually asked about you. And I said, I gave that judge kudos. Even if my expungement gets denied, at least somebody said, what about Heather? And that was important to me. Because the bottom line, that's who got hurt. And like I said, she got hurt because of my choices. Like I said, despite everything I've been through, all the pain that I've suffered, I still blame myself. I made those choices to be with the men. I made the choices to do drugs. I'm the one that made the choices to fail the board. I did that. Nobody else did that. But I'm not that person anymore, and I want to be able to prove to the board that I am not that person. I am capable capable of being the nurse that I was before. And I had an excellent disciplinary record. I had never been written up. I've never had anything ever against me on my nursing. Even if you go way back to when I was 15 as a CNA, from 15 until 30 when I went to school, I never was fired. I never had any issues ever.
You had applied to have an expungement of the child endangerment
Yes.
conviction?
Yes.
And you said that they had denied you before for that?
Yeah, I think the date on the first one for the joyriding, I think it was like November 15th.
I'm just referring to the child.
No, I know. The date on that one, hold on. November 6th. I filed those at the same time. They approved this one that I gave you, but the child endangerment was denied at that time. Then January 27th, which is the paper I gave you for the new one, that one is the one that's pending.
And have you been contacted by a probation officer for interview?
They don't contact me. They're supposed to be contacting my daughter.
Oh, your daughter?
Yeah.
And then based on that, they'll write a report. Is that your understanding, and submit it to the court?
Yes, and then I go back.
In May, at the end of May?
Yes, on the 24th.
That, thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Jarvis, do you have any additional questions? Oh, yes. Ms. Norton?
Good afternoon. So first, what I want to say to you is that I commend you for the wherewithal to come here and go through all of this. And also for the insight that you have into yourself, that you did this. And I really commend that judge and you for recognizing that your daughter was the victim, because that's who I wanted to speak to you about. I think that you have come a long way and done a whole lot of soul searching and a lot of therapy. But I want to be sure that that will stay in place. And that's the only way that that can stay in place, is to know that the people that are in your life are fully aware of what happened. So is your daughter fully aware of what happened to her? Because a lot of times victims repress certain things. And she doesn't mention it in her letter. She mentions that she knows why your license was revoked, and she mentions she kind of glides over it. But I just need to know that she's fully aware of what happened to her.
She's fully aware. And the letter that she wrote for the criminal court, it states everything in there.
Okay. And your daughter has gone through therapy as well, I'm supposing.
Yes.
Your son is also fully aware?
Yes. So
So you went to nursing school after all of this?
Yes.
I fully believe in your rehabilitation from that, and that you're a stronger person because of it, and that you own your part in it. And what you said was right. I mean, I have to commend you for saying that you love who you are now. I'm assuming that, you know, no one would love who they were and what you went through. All of that being said, what is your process for going back into the nursing field? You will have to take a test again. You will have to have some remedial. And while I understand that you didn't have any problems, and I can assume that you probably provide extra care to your patients because of the care that you did not provide to your daughter. So how will you get back into that? Can you talk about what your plans are for that?
Obviously, I'd study for the test. I've already questioned myself because I've been out of it so long. Without my glasses, I cannot see as far as the gentleman that it was asking me the questions about being able to go back. When the hospital switched over to computer systems, I actually was a trainer on the PCC, so I know how that works. I know how to put in the orders. I know how to do those things, which for somebody like me who hasn't been out while all that went into place is helpful for me, because I at least understand how the system works, as opposed to somebody that doesn't. But like I said, after being out for almost, I think right this month is 9 years, a refresher course. I read stuff all the time. I stay on top of stuff. In my petition, if you look like continuing education, there's all kinds of stuff that, you know, I want to stay on top of. I will probably always work in geriatrics because that's where my love is. I love taking care of the elderly because I think they get forgotten about. I would love to be able to continue my nursing. What I have learned in all of my years of being in a skilled setting is that people don't have the caring and the compassion. I get told all the time. In fact, yesterday I was doing a tour of, a tour of a daughter that her 102-year-old dad needs to go home for some therapy. And I was giving her the tour, and she says, "You've been doing this a while, haven't you?" And I said, "Well, I've been in the field for a long time." And she goes, "It shows." She goes, "Your compassion is just there." She goes, "The way you walk by, you don't walk by a patient and not say hi to them. They all know your name, and they all want to talk to you." And she goes, "You even been down to the person in the wheelchair, and you talk to them at eye level." And she was like, "People don't do that."
Have you talked to your current employer about becoming employed as an LVN?
They said that if I did get my license back, that I would be able to be employed there.
So though, we know I'm confident that you've rehabbed from your convictions.
Thank you.
What about so talk to me now about how have you rehabbed from your failure to follow the probationary guidelines? What's different, and how will you succeed this time and that you didn't succeed last time?
Well, besides kicking myself in the, what, for being an idiot and not taking care of stuff, I'm going to do what I do. And then, like I said, I take care of everything now. I don't let anything slide. I mean, a perfect example, the other day, we had an admission come in and he didn't get put into the computer. The ADON called me. I was back down at the facility in 5 minutes to take care of it because that's what needed to be done, because they couldn't do their work without the other information in the computer. So I immediately went down and did it. That's the type of person I am now. If something needs to be done, it needs to be done as, to say a nursing term or a doctor term, as ordered. You don't do it your way because you want to do it differently. It needs to be done the way it's supposed to be done. So where I failed before by not following up, I honestly can't even remember the lady's name that interviewed me and gave me my terms back in 2004. But instead of thinking, oh, she'll call me, it's her responsibility, I know that it's not her responsibility, it's my responsibility. I'm the one that has to make sure the stuff that needs to get done is getting done. So if somebody's not calling me, for example, when I got the petition, or didn't get the petition and I knew it had been mailed, I called Rebecca 5 times. She didn't answer. So then I called the main number at the board, and then I emailed because I wasn't getting it, and I knew she said she had sent it. So I was like, I didn't get it. And then, of course, when it showed up the day before it was due with the Anaheim address, I was like, oh, no wonder I didn't get it. But I stayed on top of it. I didn't just let it go because I was like, I'm not giving up that opportunity to try to get my license back. And I know it's in that time frame. And like I said, that's the person I am now.
Thank you. I did see in your packet where you emailed her. So I did see that in there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have just a follow-up question or
Okay.
two. Ms. Sanso, you indicated you were a different person when you were using drugs. Is that right?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that you were kind of lost in a fog of addiction?
It would be fair to say I was a crappy person that was not taking care of stuff the way things are supposed to be taken care of.
Okay, you indicated a sobriety date of September 23rd, 01.
Correct.
Can you tell me when you started using?
That time frame of that dirty test was just that month that I was with the guy that kidnapped me, stole the truck and all that stuff. That was just that short period. I started using when I was 19, 20 years old, and it was an occasional party on the weekends. But by the time I was 23, 24, I was using pretty frequently.
All right, so say going back to 1993, 1994, how often were you using?
All the time, all day, every day, by
Okay,
that time.
Okay, and how long did that continue? Up until 2001?
Oh, no, I got accepted into the nursing program, I think it was the beginning of 95. I had just moved to Orville, and it was a week after moving to Orville that I got the letter, because I had been on the waiting list for 3 years to get into the program at the college. I got that letter, and that was the last day that I used. And I didn't use again until 2001 when I was with Miguel.
So your testimony is that you were going from using every single day to how often then in 95?
I did nothing. I quit. Cold turkey. Did not touch it. And I have because obviously working in nursing homes, I was a CNA at the time, but working in nursing homes, I passed every drug test that I've ever been given.
So what was the trigger then in 2001 when you used and had a dirty test?
Miguel, the gentleman that I was dating, he was a drug dealer. I didn't know that when I started seeing him in April or May of that year. And then because of his addiction, that's when he totally believed people were after him. Sorry. He even thought that I was undercover, and he would tell me that if I wasn't going to use, that he was going to stab me, or he was going to beat me up, or he was going to lock me in the room. And it was easier to just do it and then than to get beat up or, stabbed after he had already followed through with those things. When the police came over, because he had threatened my kids, it took them a while to get me out of my room that he had me trapped in. But then he started calling in. The female police officer had answered the phone. He thought it was me, and he threatened my life and the kids' life. And the police officer was like, you could tell by your bruises on your arms and your neck from the type of abuse that you were taking. But they couldn't find him.
So up until 95 is your testimony, you were using for some period of time every single day.
Probably to be honest, I would say probably 93 to 95 was probably my heaviest drug use.
So for more than a 2-year period then, you were using every single day.
At least on a daily basis.
I think if your testimony is true, then that's remarkable to be able to quit cold turkey, wouldn't you say?
You know what I've learned about myself? If I believe in something, I'm able to achieve it. When I quit using drugs then, I had waited 3 years to get into the nursing program. And then it was the same thing when I got out of jail. I was like, I don't deserve all of this. I'm going to show myself that I can be who I want to be, who I think I should be.
And then in addition to quitting basically cold turkey in 95, you've had no support from NA or any other 12-step program or any therapeutic intervention for at least 3 years. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Yes.
I just want to make this real quick because you said something over here to the board members that concerned me. So I just want to make sure I understand you completely and that I'm not misunderstanding you. You said you take responsibility for the underlying conduct with your daughter in as much as you made some choices. You made the choice to be with this man. But your participation was more than just being with the man. It wasn't all the child abuse didn't occur just from him. You were involved in it. You went and retrieved her and brought her into the room. You encouraged her to lick his penis. You instructed her to touch him sexually. Do you take responsibility for your behavior, or you blame that on the meth?
No, I take responsibility for all of my actions.
Okay.
Absolutely every action.
And then when I hear you talking about the time you relapsed on meth, you were with, I think you said his name is Miguel.
Yes.
And that he forced you to, he was threatening you, and I believe you. But do you take responsibility for taking the meth, or that was Miguel's fault?
No, I blame myself. Like I said, I blame myself for picking the crappy men. I blame myself for using the drugs, despite the fact that, that I went out seeking it? No. But I'm the one that, bottom line, made the choice to use.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Norton.
Just because it got brought up. What kind of men do you pick now, and what have you learned?
Actually, right now, for the last 2 years, I have been dating somebody that it's like being with myself. We go camping together, we go hiking together, we make decisions together. I was just telling my best friend, because he just got back from South Africa, and he had gone with his best friend, and he couldn't get any pictures because his best friend was in control of where they were going. And I said to my best friend, Virginia, I said, when Pat and I go places, if we see something cool on the side of the road, we stop, we take pictures of it. If we have to turn around, and come back, that's what we do. We go hiking, we go to the gym, we do everything together, and we have fun together. He supported me, like, driving here today. He's like, "You got this," because I was like, I can't do this. I'm by myself. I don't have anybody, because everybody's work schedules, nobody could come in. I was like, I can't do this alone. He's like, "You got this," And I have to say, because outside of my kids having always been there to support and be there for me when I need somebody, it's nice having somebody that's actually supportive, that doesn't want anything from me, that's not telling me to, go fix food or, go clean the house or go to work or whatever, and not being judged. It's nice. And he knows my whole story. And I have to say, it's not easy telling people, as you guys see. I mean, it's great having that.
So you're confident that, given a situation where there was a person in your life that wanted you to do something that you knew that you didn't want to do, that you would not buckle under pressure again, and you would be able to stand up for yourself?
Oh, yes, I would. Yeah, I will never be that victim again.
Thank you.
Other board members have questions? Ms. Jarvis, any questions?
No further questions.
Okay, and Ms. Sanso, is there anything else you want to say before we close this matter?
I just thank you.
Thank you. And record in this matter is closed. The case is submitted off the record in this matter. You'll receive a written decision sometime later. We're going to take a 10-minute recess at this point.
I believe we have all board members in the room.
Yes, all board members are present. Record will show that we have a quorum. And the next matter is LaQual Wright. Good afternoon, Ms. Wright. Had a long wait,
Tortured.
and now it's your turn.
Finally.
And remember what I said earlier this morning about this being about patient. Have any documents other than the one certificate?
Yeah, that's the only thing I have.
Okay, so I've marked that as Exhibit 2.
Okay.
So, process, the Deputy Attorney General will introduce the case, will introduce your petition packet into evidence. And there you'll then have your chance to testify, and the board will ask you questions. I want to be sure that you have a chance to say everything you want to say. So you sure of that. Ms. Jarvis.
Yes, thank you. My name is Christina Jarvis, Deputy Attorney General. I am appearing here on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7. My role here is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest by ensuring the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. Petitioner became licensed on July 25th, 2003. On July 26th, 2011, petitioner was convicted of DUI for being under the influence of drugs with her 2 small children, ages 2 and 4, in the vehicle. Petitioner tested positive for alprazolam, hydrocodone, and morphine. Petitioner was also under investigation at that time for diverting drugs from her employers. While petitioner denied diverting at that time, it was proven that she had diverted at least 36 tablets of various controlled substances. Petitioner lied to the investigator and to the board about her conviction and this diversion. An accusation was filed, and petitioner proceeded to an administrative hearing. The board adopted the proposed decision of the administrative law judge, and effective February 26, 2014, petitioner's license was revoked. Petitioner now admits to diverting the drugs. She states that she had been prescribed pain medication, which made her feel good, so she got curious about the effects of other drugs, and that curiosity is what led her to divert from her patients. Petitioner has written a letter to the board stating that she has undertaken her rehabilitation seriously. She admits that she was in denial and that she came to be grateful to the individual who reported her for drug diversion and therefore stopped her conduct and gave her the mandate to get help. Petitioner has completed a 52-week relapse recovery prevention program, a 52-week parenting program, a 3-month court-ordered substance abuse program, has attended AA and NA. She states that she attends church more often and more regularly, and she has completed a 12-step self-help book group challenge. She states that she has learned her lesson. Petitioner provided character reference letters, including from her employer at the time of the revocation of her license, Vision Home Health and Hospice Care, the president of which is an attorney, and states that petitioner's clients love her. They continue to ask about her and whether she's coming back, and that while he is aware of the reason that she was revoked, she is a credit to the nursing field. Another employer, Destiny Home Health Agency, wrote more of an employment recommendation letter, and there is no indication that they are aware of the underlying reasons petitioner was revoked. However, they do recommend her for an employment position. Petitioner also provided a letter from her sibling, who stated they are a certified alcohol and drug counselor and believe that petitioner is active and present in her recovery. Petitioners provided 5 character letters from coworkers who all state that she deserves another chance. Also from her mother-in-law, her cousin, her uncle, her sister-in-law, and a member of her church. Finally, petitioner also provided proof of completion of 8 hours of continuing education since the revocation of her license and attendance at an in-service training program, as well as information about the medical coding school she is currently attending. Petitioner is eligible for reinstatement. However, there is an outstanding cost recovery balance of $11,507.50, which she was ordered to pay in the event of reinstatement. At this time, I would like to identify and submit into evidence the exhibits that were previously provided to the board, the judge, and the petitioner. Exhibit 1 is the notice of hearing, petition for reinstatement, and all of the additional items that I have identified and the underlying decision and order. And I ask that it be admitted for all purposes.
The petition has been marked as Exhibit 1 and is admitted into evidence.
Thank you. Since the burden is on petitioner, it is now her opportunity to address the board.
Is right. It's your turn to say what you have to say. So. Oh, thank you. And I will swear you in. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And spell your first and last name for the court reporter.
Laqual, Laquel, Wright, Wright.
Okay, so tell us what you have to at this.
Okay, I think this exhibit A15, which is the letter that I have written to the board, that would have been.
Bring the mic just a little bit closer and speak.
Okay. Okay, so A15 in the reinstatement packet, that's a letter that I had written to the board, so those would be the things that I would say right now, but since you already have that, basically I just kind of took some notes. So I'll just base what I'm saying off of those notes in anticipation for what you may ask. First of all, in regards to being here today, I became eligible to petition for reinstatement February 26th of this year, and I contacted Ms. Anderson to get the ball rolling, and I was informed that the deadline for this hearing was for me to send the documents by, I think, April 15th. I had less than 2 weeks to get everything together, and I FedExed everything the day before. So it's just by the grace of God that I got in time. So I want to thank you for seeing me today. I feel lucky to get in. She already explained to you guys in that reading that she just did that my whole problem started with the back pain or back strain issue. That was shortly before I started working at St. John, where the diversion happened. And at that time, it was Norco. But once I started working at St. John, I became curious of what the other medications felt like. So that is how the diversion started. And then, of course, Ms. Frost reported me, and now we're here. I was kind of listening to some of the questions that you were asking, and for Mr. Vertito, I noticed that you like to ask about integrity and honesty and whatever. I just want to say that my employer wrote a long letter on my behalf, and I still work with them, and if I was not trustworthy, I wouldn't have gotten that letter. The second thing is that with the coding, I work from home. So I'm already having access to protected health information at home and have been for the last so many years. So that, I think, can help with your normal questions of integrity. And then for Ms. Bass de Martinez, you'd like to ask about triggers. Well, for me, because I had first of all, I don't want to give anybody any excuses today. I have no reason to have done what I did. I don't come from abuse. I wasn't depressed. I don't have a woe is me story. I just did it. So in terms of triggers, I don't have any triggers because I had no reason in the very first place to even do what I did. So there's no triggers for me. And in terms of a safety net, the last 3 years have been the worst 3 years in my life. I've gone through so much, almost lost my family, didn't have money for a while. I embarrassed myself and humiliated myself. The pain and torture I've been going through, I don't want to feel it again. You couldn't pay me enough money to do again what I did. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't have done any of this. Also, in beginning, I was in denial because I was embarrassed. So I tried to lie my way out with everybody as if, you know, a kid lies to you about something and you know that they're lying and they don't understand how you know. I now know if I had just owned up to what was going on, it would not have gotten this far. I would have had other ways to deal with it rather than going through this, but I didn't do that, so here we are. The certificate that you have is a certificate of completion from the NCLEX, or for the P in NCLEX. I took that course just to add to my educational continuation because I've never been out of the healthcare setting throughout this time. I worked from home for a while, but I was still, what I was doing was working with the OASIS, which is a home health assessment. And in order to code that, it requires me to be able to connect the dots and keep up on new information, new medications, new everything, so that I can complete the task of auditing an OASIS and coding it. So I took that course just to kind of like, refresh my brain in terms of book work, not the hands-on part. But after being out of school so long, you just want to keep your education up. So that's what I did. I chose a subject a month out of my basic nursing class books that I have at home from when I did go to school. When I'm at work, even though I'm not licensed, I'm still invited into the same in-services as the licensed nurses so that I can maintain my education and my abilities in the office. I also work with nurses who work out in the field. I work with them over the phone or when they come in. So I'm in that setting. I'm there. I hear what's going on with the patient's health, how to handle the situation, how to brainstorm, how to apply critical thinking. So I technically never left nursing. I left nursing in terms of what I was able to do with my license, but you can take my license, but of course you can never take the nurse out of me. So in that respect, I never went anywhere. Also, I plan to continue with my prerequisites for the fall semester that's coming up to go forward with my RN program. I haven't taken prerequisites in years, so where I'm picking up at are like my sciences, but that's my plan for this fall and to continue on. And other than that, I'll just wait for your questions and just answer them accordingly.
Okay, so you distributed the certificate of course completion for March 31st, 2017 through 2017. I've marked it as Exhibit 2. Have you had a chance to look at this, Ms. Jarvis?
I have.
Objections to it being admitted into evidence?
No objection.
Exhibit 2 is admitted into evidence. Ms. Jarvis, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Wright, do you have a sobriety date?
I use August 31st, 2011, but it was before then, but because I can't pinpoint a date, I prefer to use the date that I started the program back in 2011, the substance abuse program, because at least I have a specific date. Although it was before that, like maybe a month or so before that.
And is that sobriety date for everything or just for drugs?
For everything.
Do you consume alcohol at this time?
No.
Now, you mentioned in the letter that you wrote that you sometimes think about the patients, the 6 patients that you diverted drugs from. Did you ever follow up to see if they were okay for not getting their medications?
Sorry, repeat the question. Did I ever follow up with them?
Right. Did you ever check in on these patients after you diverted the drugs from them and failed to give them the drugs that they should have been administered? Did you follow up to make sure that they were okay?
Well, of course, I had to continue to follow up with them throughout the shift. However, it was the medications that were being diverted were as needed. So the patient didn't ask or need it at that time. So they weren't I didn't have to go check on them about that medication because they didn't need it or want it at that time.
And ultimately, the investigation found that you had diverted 36 tablets of various drugs, right? Were there more?
No.
So
Everything that was taken was, they used I forgot what the machine is called, but it's like a kiosk. So that's how they know, but no, that was just.
you consider yourself to be an addict?
Let me
now.
just point out to you again, if you'll keep the microphone close to you, turn to the side, you're away from the microphone.
No, not now. I don't.
Did you consider yourself to be an addict at that time?
At that time, I was in denial. It didn't really hit me to consider myself that until after I was terminated from St. John, because it seemed like it was starting to get out of control. But initially, yes, I was in denial, but by the end of at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, I had to be honest with myself, if nobody else, that this is an issue that you need to deal with.
Yeah, but you're saying it's an issue, and you've mentioned that one of the reasons that you started taking these drugs was essentially curiosity. You had no underlying reason.
Right.
And that's very concerning, because then how do we know that you won't just decide that you're curious about another drug if you go back to work?
Well, you don't know. I mean, you just have to see, but there's no, curiosity killed the cat. I got curious, I satisfied that curiosity. Everything that I've gone through over the last 3 years, that's how you will know. All of the torture that was endured, like, somebody would be a fool to go through the things that I went through in order to put themselves in a position to get back to where I am here now. So I understand what you're saying. It started out as curiosity, but the curiosity was because of the euphoria. So it continued after the curiosity because I was chasing that feeling. So then after that, then yes, it became addict at that time until I completed everything, all my classes, all my everything that I needed to complete. I don't consider now to be an addict, though.
Now, you mentioned that all of the drugs that you diverted were PRN, right?
Yes.
As needed.
Yes.
Did you think that since they were as needed, that you basically couldn't get caught?
Yeah, I didn't think I could get caught because they were as needed. So, I mean, if I felt like I could get caught, I wouldn't have done it. But no, at that time, no, I didn't think I was going to get caught.
And now, if you were ever to go back to work as an LVN, do you think that you would be in a position to be able to divert in the future without getting caught?
No, I don't, because you guys are going to give me stipulations, I'm sure, to do drug screening or whatever it is, that you're going to have me to do, number one. And number two, I wouldn't put myself in the position. Well, let me back up a second. I don't mean I wouldn't put myself in a position, because definitely in nursing, I'm going to deal with medications. But I have my head on straight to the point where this is not going to happen again. So in terms of, you're asking me basically is, if I knew a way to do it without getting caught, would I do it? And my answer to you is no. How do you know that? You don't, but I do, based on the torture I put myself through the last 3+ years.
I have no other questions.
Ms. Norton.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So I want to expand a little bit on the same line of questioning that we've had, because it is a little concerning that, and while I think I understand why you're saying what you're saying, as far as you were just curious, and you did it, and you didn't have any big demon that was anything. There was no horrible past. So while I can understand you saying that, I also don't understand it. Because you then further went on to say that if you thought you would have got caught, you wouldn't do it. So there was a cognitive process that you went through when you decided to do that. And you say that you're not an addict. So were you bored? I mean, I guess I'm really having a hard time understanding why you would make a cognitive decision without any demon causing you to do that, driving force, to put your license in jeopardy and to take drugs from patients. Why you would do that?
Okay, well, as I said before, I experienced a back strain and I was prescribed a narcotic medication, Norco, for the very first time. So once those medications were gone, when I took them and experienced them, there was a tremendous euphoria that I enjoyed. But once those were gone, I wanted to have the feeling again, and that is what led me to now diverting from work. So when I wasn't bored, it started with the back pain and then chasing that feeling. But then once I was caught, it became clear to me that it was not worth it. First of all, it was definitely not worth it. And then I acknowledged from that point that, yes, I am an addict, because if I wasn't, I wouldn't be doing this. So does that answer your question, or?
It kind of does. It kind of leads me into my next question, which was, so I understand about the Norco and the euphoria feeling, because I had a total knee replacement and they gave me Norco. And I was sitting on my couch one afternoon, took the Norco, and all of a sudden it was this nice, warm, cozy feeling. And all the pain went away and life was good. And I had a whole bottle of them. So I understand the euphoric feeling, but I also recognized that to continue to take them when I didn't need them for the pain was going to lead me down a road that I didn't want to go down. So I made that cognitive choice, and so at that point, you and I made different choices.
Very different.
You also made a choice to drive around with a fairly large amount of drugs in your system with your 2 children in the car. Is that true?
Okay, let me explain that. It's true, but the circumstances around that one. I had actually gone to bed that night. I forgot the date of the night, but I took medications before I went to bed. I actually was in the bed. My husband left for work. My mom left. Everybody left. I was in the bed. When I woke up, I was on the freeway somewhere, pulled over by the cops. I don't know what triggered me to get up. I don't know where I was going. So I guess that's what's called a blackout. But I was not consciously aware of putting my kids in the car and driving. I don't even remember doing that. Like, all of that is completely black. The only thing I remember is cars going by me really quickly on the freeway. The next thing I knew, I'm pulled over by CHP and I'm at their station, and the next day I'm picked up and sent home. But it was not a conscious thing. Like, I didn't intentionally put my children in the car with me and take off somewhere. I had no idea where I was going or why.
So you have no recollection of getting your children out of bed, in the car, and driving?
Nope, nothing until those cars were flying past my car and then the lights behind my car. And I drove from LA County to Santa Clarita. Like, that's a long, where was I going?
I don't
That's
know.
a long drive.
Okay. What are you going to do if you suffer another back injury and get prescribed a pain medication again? Do you think that's going to be, because you said you have no triggers. I think there's triggers in there somewhere. So what are you going to do if you're given a prescription for Norco and you need to take it and that euphoric feeling comes back again?
I don't need to take it. I don't have to take it. There's other medications. I take ibuprofen if I have pain. And a doctor won't force me to take something. If I say that I don't want to take the medication, and if I'm not wanting to take a narcotic, then the doctor's not going to force me to take it. So that's my decision.
And why wouldn't you take it?
I wouldn't take it because I don't want to put myself in a position where I take it and then I continue to take it again. I don't want to put that in my face if I don't need to, take it. I can be around medications, but if it's something that I need to take, I don't want to put anything into my body that's going to alter anything, period, at all. In terms of cognition, anything. Alcohol was not even included in what I was dealing with, but because I wanted to do a complete life change, I just changed everything. I used to smoke cigarettes. I stopped smoking cigarettes cold turkey. Just stopped. So everything, not just drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever, even food and dietary, I wanted to change the lifestyle totally. So I abstained from everything that had the ability to alter my cognitive functioning or whatever, euphoria.
Okay. So it would be safe to say that you made some bad decisions and choices in the past, and that you are aware of that, and that you're a different person today and that you would not make those same decisions?
Would not make those same decisions.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Deerking?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Wright, I just wanted to get the employment history down.
Okay.
Go back to 2011, and St. John of God is a different facility from St. John's in Santa Monica,
That's correct.
and it was at Santa Monica where you took the medication.
That's correct.
How did you explain away or document the diversion?
It was at a time where the patient was able to have it, like if it's, say, every 4 hours, and that 4 hours came and went, the patient didn't ask for it or didn't need it or whatever, I would dispense it and I would sign for it as if it was given to the patient.
And then in a previous hearing before this board, you never owned up to that, correct?
I don't think I was ever asked that.
If I can clarify that, at the previous hearing, Ms. Wright did own up to it. In a statement to the board prior to the hearing, she had neglected to reveal her diversion and the other drugs that were in her system at the time of her DUI for drugs. She had written a letter to the board stating that she had only taken her mother's Xanax and omitted the other drugs that were in her system pursuant to the blood test, as well as omitting the diversion that she had to have known that she had recently engaged in.
Okay, so Xanax, is that alprazolam?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, and then in addition, Ms. Ray, when you were driving, you were also under the influence of morphine and hydrocodone?
According to the report, yes. I didn't remember what it was that I had taken. So obviously, if that's what the report says, that's how I know. I hadn't seen the police report initially, but yeah, if that's what it says, then yes.
How did you, because this was after you had diverted the drugs from St. John's, right, in Santa Monica? In other words, the diversion happened, according to the record, between August and September of 2010, right?
Wait, I'm sorry, can you repeat that last part?
Yes, the diversion happened, according to the record, and feel free to clarify if this is not correct. The drug diversion happened between August 26th, 2010, and September 23rd, 2010, right?
That's correct.
So then, we're under the influence driving with the children in May of 2011.
Right.
So how did you get access to the morphine and the hydrocodone then?
I bought them from the streets.
So, all right, so after, don't let me put words in your mouth. Tell me about the history or the transition between taking the medication as prescribed to then diverting in a clinical setting to then purchasing on the street. How long had you been diverting? Were these the only instances of that?
Well, it started in the August 2010. It started at that point. And then, obviously, when I was terminated, then there could no longer be any diversion. After I left from there and I was buying from the streets, that kind of from leaving St. John all the way up to like the DUI, that was on the street. So I'm not sure what you mean by transition. That was the transition. No longer at St. John and now getting from the streets. And I chose not to continue diverting from following jobs because I was aware that I could not do so without being caught.
And yet you were able to be employed after you were terminated at St. John's?
Yes.
Were the subsequent employers aware of that?
The subsequent employers were not aware that I was terminated for diversion. Well, let me think. St. John, no. No, they were not aware. Employers did not become aware until after my DUI because I had to disclose that information to them. And then when the whole licensure loss thing came up, and I became aware that that was a situation that was going on, I needed to let them know this is what's happening, so there's a possibility I won't be able to work anymore. But at that point, I wasn't sure whether I would be revoked or not, so.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that between September 23rd, 2010, August 31st, which you indicate is the sobriety date, that you were purchasing the narcotics on the street?
From September to when?
2010, and then you indicated a sobriety date of August 31st, 2011?
Yes, in August. However, I had made the decision to not use anymore before that time. But
Okay.
because I don't have a specific date for you, I just choose August 31st because that is when I officially enrolled in some type of help program.
Well, I just want to get a sense of your usage of the narcotic. So was it a month before August 31st, roughly? Or an approximate date?
Yes, definitely, because I know for sure by the 4th of July, by the time the 4th of July came, I no longer used anything, and that was because my family kind of did an intervention thing, so.
And during this time, it was when you were employed at St. John of God, right?
No, that intervention happened way after I left St. John.
Right. My point is, the intervention happened afterwards, but you were still using street drugs.
After St. John.
Well, how about before St. John? Because you indicate you were 11.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about St. John of God. St. John
Right.
of God now? I thought we were still talking about the other St. John.
I'm sorry, that's why I wanted to clarify that.
So by the time I started working at St. John of God, I was no longer using. And they do drug testing, but by that time, no, I had decided that was it.
Okay, let me just correct myself. It was May 25th, 2011 to 11/14/2011 that you indicated you were employed at St. John of God, right?
No, St. John of God is August 25th, 2011 to November 14th. It's A24, this page.
I'm looking at A5 here. Job number 4.
Oh, then that's a typo. It should be August.
Okay, August, give me the correct dates then.
August 25th,
August 25th.
2011 to November 14th, 2011.
Okay, so this would have been about 3 months and 2 weeks after the DUI arrest?
DUI arrest, I believe it's in
May, right?
May of which year?
11?
Yes.
Under the influence of any narcotics while working at any time?
At St. John, not St. John of God, but at St. John, yes.
In Santa Monica?
Yes.
Vertito.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just writing a note. Right. You stated earlier that when you diverted the medications, the patients were not going to be harmed because all the medications that you took were as needed. Is that correct?
Well, I didn't say they wouldn't be harmed, but they were as needed medications. So it's not like administering like a blood pressure medication and then I need to follow up with you to see if your blood pressure came down. If the patient was in pain, then yes, I would need to follow up to see if the pain level was better. But because the patient didn't take the medication or want or need it at that time, I would sign it out like the patient asked for it. I would then keep it. But now there was no reason to go back and check on the patient. However, I documented the follow-up falsely.
And then you also stated that the medications were stored in a computerized drug dispensing machine of some sort. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm thinking, my experience dealing with these types of medications for the explanation for the edification and education of my colleagues is that most of these machines would dispense medication. Now, with the doctor's order for narcotics, there is a time limitation. Given one pill every 6 hours, you've taken the pill out, so the machine would deny a patient the medication because you've logged it out. And so therefore, if the patient should need the medication within those 6 hours that you took out the med for your personal use, the patient's denied the medication should they need it for 6 hours, at least, or less, depending on the doctor's order.
I would hold on to it until that time expired, just in case the patient did now ask for it.
But that's not what you said earlier. What you said is that you took the medication from the machine and no further disposition was indicated. But my understanding is that since you took so many pills out of the machine, we have no way to know how you stored it, how you separated it, mixed the medication in, say, a baggie, and there's no way to tell one medication from another because they're taken outside of, may have been taken outside of their container or their wrappers. But what I'm trying to say is that your statement that the patients would not miss them, and I'm using a quote, because this is what you wrote, I find is erroneous. That you've denied patients medication in receiving it because you've already removed it from the machine and the machine would lock it out.
I'm not sure I follow. I didn't take 36 tablets at the same time.
No, but you would take out one medication from one
Right.
patient. The machine would lock out the the machine would prevent dispensing that medication for the doctor's order for however long it's ordered, say if it's every 6 hours. When you logged it out, the machine would deny anybody else trying to get a medication for that patient for a 6-hour period because it's logged in its memory that you took it out.
Right, so when I would dispense it from the machine, it was, the patient was able to get it because it was time. But they were my patients, so I knew that nobody else would be getting anything for my patient because that's my patient. And I wouldn't take the medication, I wouldn't drink the medication right away. I would hold on to it in case the patient needed it before the 6 hours was up. Because yes, if I go back in 2 or 3 hours because the patient is now in pain and I don't have access to the medication, then if the patient asks for it, then I would take it from my pocket and give it to the patient because now I have no choice but to.
But there's no guarantee that you pulled it out in time when the patient needed it. Shift change, going on break, going on lunch.
But there's documentation, so I can see when the last nurse gave the medication.
But the machine also kept a log.
Right, so if a patient was given medication by the nurse before me, say the 7 o'clock shift, let's say the patient got the medication at 5 a.m.
I'm not talking about the previous shift. I'm talking about the nurse that follows you or the nurse that breaks you.
Right, but I don't know how to explain it. When I took it out, the patient was able to get it, but I wouldn't take it out at the end of my shift if I know another nurse is going to try to take it out and it's not going to come out.
But you don't know since it's a PRN.
Right, but I had a 12-hour shift, so I knew that the next shift wasn't going to come during that time. I'm not sure you're understanding me or I'm understanding you.
I think it's you don't understand the procedure in the hospital.
No, I understand.
The part I'm just trying to get is that you have denied the patient from getting the medication when they need it. If you went on
After me?
break, you went on lunch, yes, you would, because the computer would block the dispensing, because you have it. You had it in your hand, but there's no
Right.
guarantee that the medication that you're holding illegally, by the way,
Right,
is the medication that the patient's supposed to get.
right.
Oh, receive orders still. The Pyxis would only dispense medications that are ordered by the physician. And they would only dispense the maximum number of medications unless it's indicated a lower dosage. For example, if they're offered 1 pill or 2 pills, and you took 2 pills, nothing's available to give to the patient. And that's the point I'm trying to get, is that she said that patients would not miss them, and I'm telling you to say that is an error, the wrong statement. One of the things that a nurse is supposed to do is integrity, as you stated earlier. And you clearly shown that you have a major gap in your decision and integrity. So I'd like to have an explanation, and since you're asking for your license back, how can you document using objective data to prove that you have integrity to be a licensed vocational nurse in the state of California?
How can I document going forward or before, in the past?
You're asking for your nursing license back.
Right,
You've shown that you have major gaps or questionable integrity and at least very poor decision-making skills. So explain to me, using objective data, how you can be trusted to provide safe, competent care, and that the information that you document is in fact the truth.
well, I guess you can never be sure. I mean, there's no way to be sure. You just have to take my word for it and look at what the evidence shows.
No, we don't.
What do you
You
mean?
don't have to take your word for it. That's
I
up to
mean,
us to decide.
You don't have to take my word for it, but what I'm saying is if you're asking me, how do I know you're not going to do this again? I don't know how you're going to know. I mean, since then, I have not had any complaints from any of my jobs or patients about the care that I provide. I know how to document. I just deliberately documented dishonestly. I could have very well documented the right way in those records. I know how to document, but I chose not to in order to cover my own tracks because this is what I decided to do. However, I know right from wrong. I knew right from wrong then. I just made not good decisions. So I can document very well. I mean, I have my duties at work. I have to document honestly. Like, I know how to document. I just intentionally did not document the way I was supposed to for my own selfish reasons. So I'm aware that that was selfish. I think when she asked me about follow-up, if you're asking me if the patient has pain later or whatever, and I told her that I didn't have a reason to follow up because of the pain medication because they didn't get it. I think I understand you're saying that I'm putting the patient in danger because if they are in pain and I can't give them the medication, then I am putting the patient in harm. So therefore, going back to follow up with the patient is what's supposed to happen or what I'm supposed to do. But I deliberately took those medications and I didn't think that it was harming them because it wasn't a medication like blood pressure or something to control something else. If the patient didn't ask for the medication or exhibit any pain, then I took the medication for myself. But I didn't see it at the time as putting the patient in harm's way. So I think I understand you correctly now in terms of putting the patient in harm because I told her I didn't have to follow up because it wasn't given. but I know how to document. I knew very well what I was doing. I'm not happy or proud about it. It did impair my integrity. I have had to regain trust with people. My employers know what I did. They know about the dishonesty, but they can trust me. And based on this letter that my employer wrote to you, my employer is a tough guy to work for. He would not give you such a good letter about my trustworthiness and my work ethic and how I am if that were not the case. So for me, how you know that my integrity is there, I feel like I've restored my integrity, but for you, how you would know, it's just based on what you see in here in terms of what my coworkers and superiors have said about me and my trustworthiness. And obviously, when you get in trouble, they really start watching you closer. But I don't have any negative issues. There's no one who can say anything negative about me in terms of who I worked for or my integrity or any of the things that you and I just discussed.
Okay, but you're failing to prove your burden of proof. It's your responsibility to prove to us, this board, that you're a safe professional practitioner. Given your history, your integrity, and your decision-making is questionable. So I asked again, what objective data can you provide us to get some reassurance that you're a safe professional practitioner of vocational nursing in California?
I mean, in terms of subjective, I don't know. Like, I still take care of my mother-in-law. I still volunteer with my work in terms of sitting with patients. That I volunteer for my job for hospice as a volunteer, and I sit with my patients. Their families love me and how I am towards their loved ones. You have letters from people telling you how trustworthy I am. I'm not sure what tangible thing I can do to convince you that I am trustworthy. But everything that I've done in the last 3+ years, I think should help you to see that. I wouldn't put myself in a situation to be where I've been for the last 3.5 years. Any and everything that I do or can do to rebuild trust between myself and my family, employers, etc., I'm doing all of it to rectify what I did. I lied. I apologized for that lie. I've tried to do things to prove that I will keep walking on this straight and narrow path. I feel like I've taken measures to rectify my behavior and prove myself to my family, my friends, and colleagues by, first of all, rekindling my relationship in church. I don't just go to church. I pay my tithes, and I can't even afford to pay my tithes, but I pay my tithes. Nobody on earth knows how much money I make, so they don't know if I'm giving the right 10% of what I'm supposed to give. I've started the praise dance team with my church. These parents trust me with their daughters for however many hours a day or in a week. I'm trusted with my mother-in-law and her health, by her husband, by my husband. I've joined the praise team at my church, which is like a choir kind of like built with maybe 6 or 8 of us in the choir. I do the Feed the Homeless ministry. Like, I'm really trying to rectify what I did. And while I can't give you tangible evidence or give you any examples of a position I was put in to show you that my integrity is not currently impaired, I don't know what I can give you or say to you. But I have worked my butt off for the last 3.5 years to rectify that. So just like if you do something to somebody or lie to somebody, probably wouldn't lie to somebody, but if you lie to somebody about something or you do something to them, you apologize. And yes, the trust is broken and it takes time to rebuild that trust. So that's what we're gonna have to be. We, myself and the board, are gonna have to build this relationship from the ground up because I broke that trust. So just like any other relationship, here's where I'm at. To repair the relationship between myself and the board and the communities.
Good answer. By virtue of deeds, not words, that tell us what you're actually doing. Stating what you just did is a good evidence of objective data. Saying nice letters are great as subjective, but looking at the good deeds that you're doing count for a lot. And that's what that's what I was asking you. Not just the words that you say or the other people say, but the deeds that you perform that count for me the most. Because that's tangible. That is objective. I appreciate your honesty and candor in that regard. But that's what I needed to hear from you. Thank you.
Ms. James Perez.
Good afternoon. Thank you for waiting today. I know you waited a long time. You need a moment to compose yourself, or can I ask you a couple questions? So, and I don't want to go too into the how you diverted, but what I think I understand you saying, and why I said I think I understand, is you're working a 12-hour shift to 7 to 7. Someone has the order, morphine, 10 milligrams, PO, Q4 hours, PRN, severe pain. So you know you're on a 4-hour time limit, and you know your shift ends at 7. So there's no way, when you're doing your thing, that you're going to sign that med out any later than 3 o'clock, because you want that 4-hour window to keep it in your pocket in case the client does ask, in case the patient asks for it. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you would divert or sign things out at the beginning of your shift. If it was every 8-hour PRN, there was no way you would sign that out later than 11. So you know that when the next nurse came on, if he said, I'm in pain, I need my morphine, the Pyxis will give it. I think that's what I understand you're saying.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Okay. So on page A7 and 9, I see that you go to Relapse Recovery Prevention Program in San Bernardino.
I do.
And that's an outpatient program that you still attend voluntarily.
I do.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that that's in addition to the meetings that you still attend.
It is. I go there almost twice a week, and it's voluntary. I stopped being mandated to go there in 2013, I believe. So, yes, because there is a relapse recovery prevention program, I asked if I can be a part of it, and I was granted permission to do that. But because of my insight on certain things in the class, I was asked to participate on like a second day in the week, but kind of like part of the panel, so that I tell my story to people about where I was and knocked myself down and get back up. But yes, there were 2 different classes there, but the relapse recovery prevention was the one that was specific to my rehabilitation. And the other one, although I enjoyed both of them, the other one was more for because I enjoyed going to the classes. It was an outlet for me to talk and whatever, and to help somebody else in that group.
So what I hear you saying is it's a way of you actually even giving back.
It is, and I was even offered the opportunity to take courses to get into drug and alcohol counseling. However, I have other things that I would like to do first. I would probably eventually do it because it's a growing epidemic, and it's really sickening to see what's happening in our society and with our kids with prescription pain medications and how easy it is to get them. So at some point, I do want to get into the mental health and the drug and alcohol abuse. My brother is a counselor. He got his degree and he does it, and he shares the stories of what he does. So it is a way for me to give back. And I am constantly reminded by the group leader of what a good answer it was to somebody else's problem, or how do you deal with this or that. And because I've dealt with some of the things, I can answer some of the things. I can't go into detail with them about harder drugs like street drugs, because I'm not really familiar with street drugs in terms of use, but it's still a way for me to be able to help somebody else. So I continue to go, and I will continue to go.
And I saw that you have many letters of recommendation.
I do.
Very strong letters of recommendation, even one, I believe, from your mother-in-law.
Yes.
So that's impressive in itself. No, I'm not sure everyone could get a recommendation letter from their mother-in-law. You also have one here from Unique Harston.
Yes.
Who says she's known you for 28 years and you are her eldest cousin.
I am her eldest cousin.
And she says many nice things about you, and then she says, Ms. Wright is a healthcare practitioner who is resilient, demonstrates care through intentional actions, and continually strives to better herself. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
What are a couple things you could tell me? You've maybe talked already a little bit about it, but what are the things that you are doing to better yourself?
The accomplishments, or to better myself? Well, first of all, I started the praise dance team for the little girls in my church. And I was just now given the opportunity to do children's church for kind of like while parents are in church, the younger ones, so that they're not distracting. There's like a kind of like Sunday school thing, but the children are having their own church with Bible studies, music, etc. So I deal with that. I still work with the homeless ministry. We still feed people. With my job, when we have the health fairs, we have health fairs about once a year. I'll go with them and we'll do blood pressures. So I volunteer with that. And then I go to my kids' school to try to give back my time there too. I want to make sure I don't forget anything. Okay, Bible study, that's not an accomplishment. It's just we do it. Back in 2012, when I first moved to the Inland Empire from LA, I was offered a job. I was offered a job at Destiny Home Health, and I thought it was going to be for nursing, but it wasn't. It was to cross-train me for coding, which I never considered doing or thought was anything interesting, but I was cross-trained to do that. Once I went to Vision Home Health to do the same thing, we were on a layoff for a few months. I decided to go online and learn more about coding. So because of that, I've been allowed the opportunity to do medical coding from home for my current company. So it's like I'm at work in the office during the day, and I come home and do work again for the same company, but for a different thing. So that is something that I did because obviously I lost my income temporarily, and I needed to, figure out something else in the meantime. But for me, the coding thing was that was big, and I'm still doing that. I donate to St. Jude's every month. I wish I could donate to other ones, but I can't afford it.
Understandable. And then, do you have more?
I'm sure I'll think of more when I'm done. When I leave, it always works that way, but yeah.
Then I have the letter here from Mr. Wakabia.
Wakabia.
who's from Vision Home Health and Hospice. Have you spoken with Mr. Wakabi at all about whether you might be able to be employed with him as a VN?
Well, actually, that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up because you now make me bring up another subject in conjunction with that. There was never a question of me getting my position as an LVN visiting nurse with Vision Home Health. I was working with them before my license was revoked, and I'm working with them now. It's always, it's a running joke in the office, like, oh, look, you need to hurry up and get your license back. We need help. We need this. We need that. And he and his wife, Jessie, who's our director of patient care services, they always bring up the fact that, as soon as it doesn't say revoked anymore, then we can send you out there. But I have a problem with that. I've done some research on some other webcasts, and I've seen and heard people coming in here trying to modify their probation because as long as their license says probation, they're not able to find a job, find a job because of that probation. I'm not sure if I'm not reading your stipulations right, but one of the things says that I can't work for a registry. I don't know if you guys consider home health a registry. I'm still working directly with my supervisor. I'm just going on my own to see the patient, and then the RN comes every 30 days or so for a supervisory visit. But I don't know if that is included in that, and if it is, that's the problem.
So you're right. The stipulations of probation, there are some restrictions on where you can practice. But what I think you're saying is that because you already have a job lined up and someone who's very willing to hire you, if we were to grant you your reinstatement and put you on probation, that what you're asking for is to be allowed to work in home health.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's the request you're making of this board, is if we do grant your reinstatement, you would like it to include the provision that you can work in home health.
That's correct.
Good thing you mentioned it, because that is part of the.
Yeah, I did my research, and it really bothered me because it's kind of like, it was like the process of elimination. Like, okay, well, what's left? So.
And then the only last thing is, Ms. Jarvis did talk about that there's cost recovery out there, and it's a lot. It's $11,507.50.
Where?
So do you have either a plan and or the ability to pay that back?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have a plan to pay it back. I know that there has to be a payment upon reinstatement, but I'm also aware that there are monthly payments that can be made. So that's not a problem, but that's also another important reason why I need to have the ability to work for home health, because as of right now, nope, if I stayed in this position and I was not able to work in home health, then I don't know how I'm going to pay that and the other things that I pay. But if I'm allowed to work in my LVN practice with my current company and my income goes back to what it was before, then fine. But I'm aware of that fine, or whatever you call it, cost recovery. But I'm also aware that you guys work with petitioners or licensees in order to satisfy that.
Fair enough.
Oh,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Andoto?
Oh, I just have a question. On page A9, I believe it's A9, yeah, A9, you say you attend a group via Skype. Is that a group at this relapse recovery prevention program, or?
No, that's something different. This one is called Lion Rock's Recovery, and it's online. When I got out to the Inland Empire, I found it very difficult to find like NA courses or meetings. Everything seemed to have been like catered to AA only, but because of my situation, I felt like there needed to be some NA in addition to the AA. So the one via Skype, it has nothing to do with Precious Life, which is where I go for the relapse prevention recovery program. So Lion Rock is once a week on Tuesday nights online. And that one I haven't logged into in a while because I don't know if something happened with the site or if they took it down, but when I try to go in now, it kind of says something like it'll be available soon or whatever, but there's another one called Detox to Rehab. So there are quite a few. It's like a video conference. You can see the other people that are in the room. But yes, it's like a Skype situation.
But it's like a group therapy or like an NA group?
Oh, no, it's AANA. It's not like, group is group. It's AANNA. So people talk and say their story for that day, or, like if you go to an AA meeting, my name is so-and-so and I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic. It's that.
Yes, De Martinez.
Thank you. You mentioned you got involved because of curiosity. And as I listened to all of the activities you're engaged with, your, let's call it giving back, paying it forward, how did that come about? Is that a new you? Is that something that has always been a part? Or did you discover something about yourself as a result of the bigger experience?
In terms of starting the praise dance group, that's not a new me. I was previously in a praise dance team myself when I was younger at a church in LA that I went to. So when I moved to the Inland Empire and joined this church, they didn't have a praise dance team. So that I saw as an opportunity for the kids in the church to have something to do. And if I have this skill and this experience, why not do that? And it too helps me to, I know when I was on the team, it gave me a sense of a sense of self-esteem. And I have a daughter who's 10 and she's the same age as these other girls. And because my daughter loves to dance, that's where that opportunity came from. In terms of the homeless ministry and all those other things, those are not new because as long as I've been in church, there's always those types of programs. And when I was in nursing school, one of the things that we had to do was volunteer at like a health fair. So these things have been ingrained in me before. But it's just that when I first moved out where I live from LA, there were fewer opportunities to participate in anything. And as soon as I got into that church, then the doors just started to fly open.
I'm just wondering, moving was a major event in your life.
That's correct.
Talk a little bit about that. Did that possibly add to, let me make sure I got the sequence right. When did you move, and that move in relationship to your use of drugs?
The use was in 2010, or started 2010, but we moved in 2012. So in the process of moving, all of the events that took place was between August 2010 and when we left in 2012 to move out to the Inland Empire. So it had nothing to do with, the two are not related at all. Just if I had stayed in LA, I still would have been doing the things that I'm doing, just with different people. So when I came out to Inland Empire, I still did the things. I just needed to find out where those things could be done.
So no relationship.
No,
but
not at
as
all.
a result, this is helping you maintain sobriety.
You mean the activities or me moving?
Maybe all of it.
Okay, in terms of the activities, absolutely. My focus is, as you can see, I'm really busy. Not to mention I have 4 kids, and I work at work and I work at home, so I don't really have a whole lot of downtime, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But yes, it does help me to maintain, and it also helps me to relate with other people who are going through what I have been through. Not in terms of nursing, like I don't run into nurses who've had the situation, but I mean people in general who have decided to, for whatever reason, to decide to become alcoholic or drug addict or use. When you go to these like feed the homeless ministry, most of the people are drug addicts and alcoholics, and while they come and get their free clothes and food, we pray for them, and most of them are drug addicts. So it's a deterrent, because I don't want to look like that in the, using drugs. You kind of let yourself go. I don't want my children to grow up and fall into those same traps. I don't know, yes, to answer your question, yes, it helps with my sobriety, all of it, especially with going to the weekly meetings or twice a week, because I know that in the future that is at some point where I'll be. It's just that for right now, my RN is my priority, and I always can come back to drug and alcohol counseling. But yes, it does help maintain sobriety. You can't do that as a drug and alcohol counselor anyway if you are using. Oh, yes. To answer your question, yes, they help.
And just one other piece, you said you do not want your children to have this kind of experience.
No. I
Want
don't
to see them.
I'm sorry. I don't want my children to grow up and become drug addicts and alcoholics. So the fact that when we're at church and doing these ministries, my children are exposed to all of this, meaning that they see the kind of people that, people who are on drugs, they see the kind of struggles that they have in terms of like homelessness and lack of family or love. And for them to be able to see that, just like taking them down on Skid Row, for me, I need them to be exposed to it, but I don't want them to grow up and get into that lifestyle. So that's another thing. That's also, too, why I stopped drinking, because I didn't want my kids to feel like, well, mommy does it, then how come I can't?
Because when you first started in talking with us, you said, I don't have a story to tell. I wasn't abused. I grew up with a wonderful life. You didn't quite say that, but
Right.
Just taking that from what you said.
Right. I said that because when I'm sitting in these group meetings, every time it gets to someone to talk about how they got to that position, how they became drug addicts, it always, I was abused and this is what I fell into, or I was molested, or I was depressed. There was always an excuse or a reason why the person, and when I say excuse or reason, I mean like something happened in their lives to push them to use whatever vices they chose to use.
Given what you just said, I think you understand why we ask you about your response of, I was curious.
Mm-hmm.
Because we want to make sure, was there something that made say yes versus no?
No, just the sheer enjoyment of the euphoria, and then being exposed to other things. So to me, anything that was locked up, it was like, why is it locked up? What does it do? That's what I mean by curiosity. So, but no, I don't have a sad story like I'm depressed or anything, so that in the event of depression again, is this where I'm going to go? I understand how it would be harder to not have any triggers, because as she said before, it's like, okay, so how do we know you're not going to, do this going forward? But I just don't have any trigger.
You do know you don't have to have a sad story to become addicted.
I know, because that was me.
Thank you.
Moreno. Mr. Maxey.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Wright, thank you for sharing with us today how you learned from your mistakes. That almost cost you and your children your lives at some point. I know it is in the tradition of the church to testify. How's your testifying at church helped a particular person, and could you give an example of the person at church that you've helped along the way to prevent them from making the same mistakes that you did?
Someone in church?
Or outside of your church?
Well, I don't know if I have actually helped somebody. I mean, I know talking to somebody, that's your goal, is to help them, but I don't know of someone's story where I personally am the reason why they didn't end up making a decision because of my story. But yes, we do testify. Yes, I have a testimony coming once all of this is over, but other testimonies that have been given at church, I myself have not been a part of that in any way. However, there is someone who I met in the groups that I go to. She stopped coming about 2 years ago. I'm still there. But I encouraged her to keep in touch with me because she would always, she's an older woman, older than I am, and a lifelong drug addict in and out of prisons. And I asked her to keep in touch with me so that if she felt like she needed to talk to somebody about something, she could. And actually, she hadn't reached out for a long time, but about 2 weeks ago, I got an instant messenger on Facebook from her, and we had a long conversation, and by the next day, she basically, she said, she told me she was gonna go and smoke some crack, and Louise, please don't do that, kind of talking her out of it. And the next day when I spoke with her, I asked her, did she go and do what she said she was gonna do? And she said she didn't do what she said she was gonna do. But I'm not sure if that was a result of my conversation with her. I felt good about my conversation with her by the end of that day, but I wasn't confident she wasn't gonna go and do it, because if she's gonna do it, she's gonna do it. I wasn't close enough to her to go to her and help her, but I may have played a role in her not using the drugs if she was telling me the truth the next day that she didn't use. But other than that, I don't have any results. Like, I haven't seen any results of anybody I've spoken to or feel like I helped. So no, I haven't seen any results of someone saying, oh, I'm this today because of you. So I don't know if I have actually been the reason for someone's results.
Sounds like you have, but thank you very much for sharing.
Welcome.
Mr. DeBronstein.
I do have one question related to the introductions at the groups you attend. Do you say, hi, and I am an alcoholic, or I am an addict?
Yes, I do, because in the beginning.
That's good. You answered my
okay.
question. Thank you.
Yes, I do.
In looking at the docket sheet on the criminal matter, it looks as though originally there were 4 charges, 2 were dismissed. I just want to make sure I understand. And there were 2 that you were faced with a potential, with the conviction that was suspended or stayed if you performed your probation. Is that true?
Yes.
And then you did successfully perform your probation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as a result, one of them, at least one of them was dismissed, or both
Both were dismissed.
The court, yeah.
Yeah, they dismissed the child endangerment, and I don't remember the other one, but the ones that they kept was driving under the influence of drugs, and the other one, I believe, was being under the influence. To me, they sounded like the same. Yeah, so the other one, okay, child endangerment and I think reckless driving, those 2 were the ones that were dismissed. But the other 2 sounded so much alike. So driving under the influence of drugs and being under the influence of drugs, if I remember correctly from this paper.
Okay, so you performed the probation on those latter 2, and then those were ultimately dismissed, or
Dismissed.
whatever you want to call it, that made them disappear.
Okay, all right, very good. And of course, since you were working at St. John's, Santa Monica, have you worked in any environment where you had access to any drugs?
Yes, I had, immediately after, but these were even before the DUI though. But yes, I had all the way up until, let me see. Country Villa was the last one, and that was, I think I lost anyway. But yes, I had worked at another facility since then, and I did have access to the drugs, but I chose not to divert because I knew at that point that I could be caught. And that was before like my convictions and stuff, so I probably would have, but I didn't for that reason.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do any other board members have more questions? Ms. Jarvis,
No, Your Honor, submitted.
is there anything else you would like to say?
Yeah, I just want to say that, I know you guys see people in here all the time and you hear their stories and they become all the same after a while. Everybody probably says the same thing or whatnot because it's what I witnessed. But I just want you all to know that the torture that I've endured over the last 3.5 years, if nothing else, that would deter me from doing anything at all that would jeopardize my license in any way. I do realize that you have no way of knowing what the future holds for me. However, as I said before, this is a relationship that's going to have to start over in terms of trust. I'm going to have to regain your trust, and I plan to do that. And believe it or not, I'm really glad that this happened, because if it didn't, who knows where my life or my kids' life would have been. Somebody told me that it was crazy that I felt like that, but I felt like if I hadn't gotten caught or crashed into a wall, not literally, but figuratively, I don't know if I would have stopped or when. But because this happened, I learned who I am. I've learned things about myself that I didn't know were there before. I've learned how strong I am. And I've learned how to exhibit self-control among everything else. So I assure you that you won't see me here again unless I'm coming back to modify probation if I'm granted my license back.
Thank you very much. No one else has anything to say or ask. This concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed and the matter is submitted. Notified of the decision in writing.
So that brings us to agenda item number 7, closed session disciplinary actions. The meeting will now adjourn to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 11126C3 to deliberate and vote on above matters and any other disciplinary matters. If we could have the room cleared.